how's it going? My name is Mo. I recently got my VPS and started working with it for hosting our website here. And I just wanted to share with you the challenges that we went through during this journey in this playlist, and hopefully this will give you some push to get started with your stuff. Last time we talked about selecting your hardware. We said what's important, what's not, and we also talked about the whole idea behind VPS. And also we mentioned the challenges that you might encounter and things that we will discuss throughout this series. Today on the agenda, we will connect to our server. Last time I told you that it's important that you get these three values here. The first one is your user, probably most definitely root, and then a password, and then the IP address of your server. And you basically will open any terminal. If you're on Windows, PowerShell, and if you're on Linux or Mac, I think you have to the terminal. And the thing that you should be looking for is just this SSH command. When it spits out something like this, then good to go. For connecting to your server, you basically have to write SSH, and then the username, that's root probably, and then @, and then the IP address that you get from the your VPS dashboard after you buying VPS. And then when you hit enter, you will be asked to enter your password. This was a random server, so it's just hanging, probably not working. But anyway, this will ask to enter your password, and you will enter this password that you get from your VPS provider. Okay, so after you enter your password, you probably come into some something like this. But the most important thing is that you have to say also something like this: root at blah blah blah, which means that you got into your server, and basically this is you're now connected to your server. Congratulations. Next, we will look into creating a new user. Now, what's the idea behind it? The problem is that root is basically the owner of the server. It's really important. We try not to touch root that often. Usually only when we want to install something, or we want to deal with something that needs really a specific, basically the ownership, the server. For example, if you want to change a port, if you want to add something to your firewall, or install some important applications, then root is the way to go. But other than that, we try to create a user and do all the tasks as much as we can with that user. I hope you don't mind me doing it like this, because this is the way that you will do it most of the times. You have an idea, you want to do something, you have something that doesn't work. Of course, you try to search. Of course, you try to talk to some, nowadays, AI models, GPT, and so on. Okay, so when you ask GPT or any other model that you use, you get the commands. These are the commands that you should put as your in your terminal, of course. The add user and the username. You can change the username to anything, of course. I will do test user, and then this grades it. So when you create it, it will ask for a password. This will be the password of your user. So if you want to log in using that user, this is the password that you will enter. So I will add something that I hope I don't forget. And yeah, the user just added. And if you want to also say it, you can use this command less, Less is basically a command that you can just look into some files. If you go like all the way down, you can, for example, see our this user here. Okay. Now the user is created. Now we want to change this. We just want to basically log in as a new user. So again, almost the same thing happens here. Okay, so if you want to just log out from your terminal, you can press Ctrl D, and this will just kick you out from your current from your connection, or you can just also just close the terminal. Okay, now that we created our user, there would be like we go through similar thing. We do SSH, this user, adds, then your IP address, and then this will ask for a password, and then your password will be the password that you just entered when you created the user in our server. So usually most of the things that I want to do on a server, like almost everything that I want to do on a server, I try to do it as a test user, like a secondary user, anything other than root, because you try to like keep things minimized. For example, if you later want to you probably want to keep your system clean, and then root is just one user that can do anything, and usually you don't get an error with for example, if you want to do something that is not allowed, or like it doesn't make sense to do it as a root. So the best idea is that go with a secondary user. So the best idea is that go with a secondary user. Use it as much as you can, and rarely try to use root. That's the whole idea. Okay, so next on the agenda, I want to talk about a little bit like about identity file. There is a way that you kind of skip every time putting down your what is identity file? Identity file is something related to SSH. Instead of every time writing SSH, test user at blah blah blah, for example, your IP address, you can create this identity file, and then this will be something like this. Okay, so identity file is something related to SSH. It helps you to connect to your server with that specific user without entering password. So you just type in SSH test user blah blah blah, and then hit enter, and then you're in. And this can be also extended into something called a config file. If you usually on your home, you can also look it up. There would be somewhere this folder called .ssh. You can take connecting to a server without the password for one additional step, and you can also go into creating your own SSH config, and this basically enables you to connect to your host just by writing this name. Like instead of writing let's say test user, instead of writing root at blah blah blah, you just write down SSH and then, for example, here RPK or something like this, and this would be like a code. You just write SSH and RPK, and then because we have it enabled here, it will take the user, it will take the IP address of your server to connect to, and also the identity file of your SSH. Now I kind of skipped a bit the identity file. This is basically like a password that you set. Basically, there would be two files. Of course, it's mainly these two commands here. So just to give you more idea about the identity file, you have to hit something like this. And this will basically generate some keys, some private and some public key. And yeah, let's hit enter. And then you can also set the password, but I don't know, if you feel this will be the password for your identity file, so it can be more secure if you actually provide the password, but I don't do it, so just to sake of the demonstration. Okay, so creating our file didn't go according to plan. There was an error, but no problem. I think this should work. Okay, yeah. So the problem was, I think this is not recognized in the Windows. Yeah, anyway. So now my file is created. This will be something, okay, this is the files that we are interested in. This is your private key. Basically, this is the content that you shouldn't even look into. I mean, of course, you can look into, but usually whenever someone tells you, hey, give me your SSH key, this is the key that you should give to him, this .pub, this .public, this public key. Now, if you open it, there will be something like this, something gibberish. And now this is something that we have to put into the server. I will show you how. Okay, so I just connected again to my server using this test user, and then if you look into your home directory, there are these files at the moment. This is the default files that Linux will create when you create a new user, so don't worry about it. But what we are interested in is this, creating a folder. So we create this folder, and then we have to put our password basically in a file into this folder. So I think authorized keys, I'm not sure. Let's look it up. Yeah, here for example. Yeah. Again, these are the things that you probably run into, like, I don't know everything, and it's okay to just look around. Of course, there's Google and the ChatGPT for a reason. So we copy this value to our authorized keys, and then we save it. Also, this is Vim environment. There's a debate if you're a Vim guy or an Emacs guy and Linux, so I don't care. This is the thing that I used to, so I'm doing it this way. You just enter your key here, and then if you use the same command, you just have to press escape a couple of times, and then colon, and then X, and then we just save it and just pops out of the file. So again, if we do less to look into our file, we see that it's saved. So perfect, no problem there. Okay, and then you also want to change your config file. Again, this is something that you can look around, but for example, in this case, you can put id.ed. This would be your identity file, or maybe I think that pub should not be there. So this would be the path to your key, like private key, the one that you shouldn't look into. And this will help us to connect automatically to the remote. So if you just put here So if I just put here, for example, SSH RPK, then the SSH will go and have a look at the config file and then sees that, okay, this is the host name, this is the IP, this is the thing that I have to connect. And by the way, this should be, for example, this user. And using this identity file, it will connect to the SSH. And then everything would work. You basically don't need to enter your password, and this is like way shorter than just writing test user at your IP address. Yeah, so that was our identity file. Sorry if I skipped around a little bit, because you can work out the details to set it up. It can be confusing the first time, but usually there's enough guides, I would say. So the next thing that I want to talk about is aaPanel. Now, personally, I think aaPanel, it gave me, as my experience, so much pain, a lot of headache. But if you want to get it started, it's amazing. It's so super convenient, and it does things really good. And then you also can do things just by some clicks. It will give you something like this dashboard with different things to look into, and how you can manage your websites and stuff. So this is something that you might also want to install. If you are interested in looking at something like this, how much your RAM you're using, and so this could be the thing. But to be honest, for example, this looking into RAM and stuff, but to be honest, looking into resource usage and stuff, I just use htop. It will give me a good understanding of how much memory I'm using and how much of the CPU is occupied, and so it's good if you want to have it like this, pretty UI, but it might give you pain along the way. At the moment, what I am using it for is just managing my websites, like the domain names and also the Nginx. Okay, so the crazy thing that I learned about it the hard way is that aaPanel, it manages its own Nginx. So I thought, okay, this is aaPanel, just a wrapper around my Nginx. Okay, before getting into aaPanel more, I just wanted to really quick mention Nginx. This is like Apache is another equivalent. Nginx is almost, for me, as far as I know, it's like a de facto, and it's really, it handles your server. It kind of handles the requests that are coming to your website, and then it finds out like where to deliver it to, which application. Because, for example, when you run your server, it's basically is listening to a port. It's waiting for requests. That's what server is. So Nginx kind of gives you the chance to handle these requests and delivers them to the proper port. Now, by default, I mean, if you want to run a website, like deploy a website, Nginx is a go-to, and usually it's done in this way. And I just wanted to mention it's really quick, because on aaPanel, and this is one part that I think the headache comes in. aaPanel, if you work with it, it works really good. At the moment, my use case is just creating my proxy project, basically in a sense that when a request comes, which directions should it go? And usually people do it with Nginx, but aaPanel, it has its own Nginx. So it's in a different directory. For example, if I'm not mistaken, /www/server or something. I don't know. I don't remember, but something like this. And then on a normal setting, the normal way that you might install Nginx would be installed under somewhere, I don't know, I think /bin/Nginx or something like this. So there can be a confusion, there can be a time that you are running two Nginx on the same server and you don't want to do this. So if you are going with aaPanel, you have to know that if you, let's say at some point you want to try to change to Nginx on your server and handle everything yourself, then you have to keep in mind that this is the problem. aaPanel handles its own Nginx, like it's separately. So if you want to install your own Nginx on your server without aaPanel, you have to completely uninstall the aaPanel. That's the point that I wanted to mention, but for me, the current use case, I think aaPanel is working good, and it just helps me to add some proxy projects and define my websites. And also another thing that I wanted to mention is that it keeps track of your SSL certificates. Also the idea that you put HTTPS in front of your websites. The aaPanel handles that. There's also a possibility handle it yourself among, like, next to the Nginx that is running on your server, but it gave me a bit of pain. So at the moment, I'm keeping aaPanel alive just for the reason that it handles SSL and it handles my proxy projects. Just this navigating through different ports when different requests comes in. So that's the only reason, but I have a really suspicious about aaPanel. I don't feel good, to be honest, and also it kind of opens one port on your server to get access to it. For example, at the moment on a server is this port. Okay, so back to the agenda. I talked about aaPanel, and then the important thing that you have to keep in mind, aaPanel for me, it made my life relatively easy, but again, gave me some headaches here and there. I'm keeping it alive for my proxy project and then also these SSL certifications. You have to keep in mind that aaPanel is living in a port. It's basically like the application that is running on your server, and there's some overhead first that you have to consider. And also there is a security factor that basically one of your ports is open, it's exposed. Of course, aaPanel is living there, and but if you want to be really secure, I think this also is one consideration that you might make. So this is also one thing that I wanted to show you. On my server currently, aaPanel, by the way, this runs as the BT panel name. At the moment it has around 2% of my memory. There's a chance that there's some other programs running somewhere else, but I have a 2 GB of RAM, so 2% would be something like 40 megabytes. So the overhead might also be not that much if you think of it. You can also just run aaPanel and then try to kind of close the port. So you can later on use SSH to connect to that port. We will learn that. I will tell you about it. And with that said, next we will move into installing software and also Docker. It's making things containerized is really interesting, also really important in the servers. Thank you. See you later.